have to start by reading out this statement. I'm obliged to inform you that this meeting is being videoed. Members of the public are entitled to record the proceedings and are requested to give prior notice so that any additional measures that may assist can be put into place. Any member of the public who has any concerns should raise them now. Right, we move along.
If you want to report, you've got to give written notice.
Item 1, apologies for absence.
Robert Macy and William Butler.
Right, okay, thank you. Disclosable pecuniary interests. Nobody seems to be indicating, so we'll move on. The minutes were sent out separately. Everyone happy with the minutes? Can I see everyone just so they approve them? Right, thank you. Public question time. Now, I haven't got the list in front of me. Here's the list. The first question was from Mr. Lemon. Is Mr. Lemon here? No, well there is a response somewhere around.
Well, I've got the response.
Well, we'll send it in writing. It'll go out in writing then to everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then the next one is from Joanne Blackman. Right, no, it's present. Right, yeah, if you come forward on the chair, and if somebody just press the button for you to make sure we get you online. That's it? Right. Right, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So, as Cabinet will be aware, the Court of Appeal ruled last week that the proposed Heathrow third runway would be in breach of the UK's commitments under the 2015 Paris Agreement to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to tackle the climate crisis. In the light of this verdict, will Cabinet now commission an independent reappraisal and scrutiny of the climate and environmental impacts of the proposed North West Relief Road, including quantitative assessments of the impacts of both development, construction and use of the road?
And I think Councillor Dean Carroll has got the response.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you for the question, Joanne. However, I must correct your initial assumption on the Heathrow decision. The Court of Appeal ruled that the National Policy Statement, the ANPS, backing Heathrow's expansion was unlawful as it failed to consider the impact on the UK's obligations under the 2015 Paris Agreement, not that it breached them per se. Lord Justice Lindblom told the court the Paris Agreement ought to have been taken into account by the Secretary of State in the preparation of the MPS, and an explanation given as to how it was taken into account, but it was not. In the context of the North West Relief Road, members of the Shropshire Council Planning Committee will make the decision on whether to approve or refuse an application for the North West Relief Road. In doing so, they may take into account any material considerations of relevance to the planning application. One such consideration may be whether the proposed scheme conflicts with the UK's ability to comply with the commitments of the Paris Agreement of 2015. On this basis, there is an onus on the applicant to demonstrate there will be no such conflict. Also, notwithstanding Shropshire Council's own commitment to achieving net carbon zero by 2030, which members agreed as part of the Climate Change Strategy Framework in December 2019. One of the objectives set out in the outline business case for the proposed scheme, which was issued in December 2017, is to contribute towards a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. The analysis included in the outline business case predicts that the proposed scheme will lead to an overall reduction in greenhouse gas emissions compared with the do minimum standard. The environmental impact assessment currently being undertaken for the North West Relief Road will include updated predictions of greenhouse gas emissions generated by the proposed scheme. Both embodied carbon during construction and operational carbon will be considered. The environmental impact assessment would also consider the proposed scheme's vulnerability and resilience to the effects of climate change. The Board of the North West Relief Road has already commissioned a further study in respect of assessing the carbon performance of the new road in terms of both embodied carbon, i.e. construction, and operational carbon effects. The work is still at its data gathering phase, and further data and evidence will be provided for consideration in due course. It does need to be stated that the report has already been commissioned via WSP and Balfour Beatty, in addition to the evidence base and existing data that forms the original business case for the North West Relief Road. The study is due to be completed during the spring and will be subject to acceptance or challenge by the North West Relief Road Board. Shropshire Council is firm in its commitments to tackling climate change and becoming carbon neutral by 2030. The North West Relief Road has a role to play in this by reducing through journeys passing through Shrewsbury Town Centre and reducing emissions from stationary and slow-moving vehicles. The North West Relief Road proposals have been amended to protect ecologically important sites, and the proposals include green infrastructure to enable and encourage journeys by pedestrians and cyclists between North and West Shrewsbury. The idea that Shropshire Council is not considering its obligations under both its own commitments and international treaties is wrong.
And a written copy of that will be
Yes.
sent out to everyone.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Right, we move on now to member questions. Roger Evans, I think the first was to Ed Potter. Roger?
Yes, Chairman. Do you want me to read it all out or take it as read?
I'd rather take it as read,
It has been circulated around the members at the very least, and I'm grateful to committee services for all that. So I take it as
Yeah,
read.
okay. Ed?
Okay, thank you very much.
Excuse me. We haven't seen it.
Fine. I'll read it out, Chairman.
Okay.
Question is, I have not seen the notes with the call in for the youth strategy decision made at the last cabinet meeting held a short time ago, so having to rely on my notes and personal memory. Mine and some others present at that scrutiny meeting understood you to undertake that any youth club at present receiving funding from Shropshire Council would continue to receive it if that club was unable to obtain replacement funding from either their local council or some other voluntary body until next March. This is to allow more time for them, together with Shropshire Council, to work together in an effort to locate and obtain any replacement funding needed so it can continue to stay open. Last night, at a meeting of a youth club in my area, I was told that youth clubs in Market Drayton, funded by Shropshire Council, will be closed, cease to run from the 31st of March 2020. This will mean that notice of closure will have to be given to all attending these two clubs next Wednesday, that's tonight, in four weeks' time. It will be closing. This is because Shropshire Council will be withdrawing all its financial support, and Market Drayton Town Council has said it is unable to help and replace the funding previously provided by Shropshire Council. Is Shropshire Council now going to stop providing financial help and therefore cause these two clubs to close? My understanding is that Market Drayton Town Council will continue to support the youth zone on Fairfield Estate, and note this club is also in receipt of funding from elsewhere. This club is independent of the two youth clubs commissioned by Shropshire Council. Therefore, currently, Shropshire Council contract with Shropshire Youth Association to deliver two clubs. Market Drayton Town Council is supporting the Zone 1 club. As I understand it, therefore, after the 31st of March 2020, Market Drayton Town Council will continue supporting the Zone 1 club and may in fact help it to open for a second session. The two youth club sessions held elsewhere in the town and funded by Shropshire Council will cease on the 31st of March 2020. Can an answer be given as to why, given the undertaking made, funding the two clubs in question is being stopped and so causing them to close? As I understand it, what is happening at Market Drayton is directly contrary to the undertaking I and others understood was given at the scrutiny meeting. Finally, are there any youth clubs all youth sessions ceasing on March 31st, 2020 due to lack of funding.
Councillor Potter, respond.
Thanks very much for your question, Roger. There will be obviously a written copy of the response to you, in which I would have included the recommendations from the Cabinet that was approved, from Cabinet meeting which was approved as well. But with reference to your query in relation to Market Drayton, after recent discussions, I can confirm that Market Drayton Town Council have agreed to fund open access youth provision in their area. Market Drayton Town Council want to implement their own local plan to ensure open access youth provision is available to young people in the town. They do not have plans to reduce the number of sessions currently being provided. As part of their planning, Market Drayton realised that there are efficiencies that can be made in moving provision to a venue they already use to deliver a youth cafe and existing open access youth sessions. The Town Council feel this is the better use of resources, including buildings, and want to build on existing open access youth provision. As the above recommendations described from the Cabinet meeting, Shropshire Council worked closely with town and parish councils to commission open access youth provision, as is the case with Market Drayton Town Council, and can confirm that no open access youth provision will be lost. However, town and parish councils have the discretion and their own decision-making processes to commission providers which they feel will offer provision that best suits their community's needs, including children and young people.
Okay, thank you. Right, the next question.
Supplementary, Chairman, because there is, as I understand it, Market Drayton has and will continue providing the access, open youth access at the zone, as this is part of the lottery funding that they received, not to funding the provision that Shropshire Council will close. The current two clubs, the current senior club had 21 attend last week, and the number are again growing. Last year, as a result of Shropshire Council reducing its funding and standardising provision across the county, this was reduced in length.
There's a question. I'm sorry, you're pushing me up.
There is a question that the Market Drayton has and will continue funding the youth club in Zone 1. There are two other youth clubs, totally separate, funded by Shropshire Council, well attended. They will cease to exist on March the 31st. In fact,
I'm still waiting for a question.
the question is, are the facts that I'm saying now correct? Because it's different to what the answer was, which said that the two clubs there are no other clubs in Market Drayton. There are two other clubs in operation.
Councillor Potter to respond.
So, from my understanding is, in conversations with Market Drayton Town Council, that they are going to take on the commissioning of youth provision, replacing what Shropshire Council was doing to enable us to do the outreach work in Market Drayton. And how they do that is very much up to their own decision-making processes. They're obviously a town council in their own right, and they are making provision to increase provision to complement what they already have, which they fund separately, is my understanding of the situation.
Right, question 2.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll read it out again as some in the audience do not have it. Question is, it is noted that Clive Wright will relinquish the post of Chief Executive at Shropshire Council with immediate effect sometime on Tuesday, 25th of February. An email was sent around the staff informing them of this, and that two other senior officers had been appointed as joint Chief Executives with immediate effect to take over the running of Shropshire Council. This was totally unexpected and very sudden. During that morning, Mr. Wright was heard on Radio Shropshire giving details of the excellent emergency work that Shropshire Council staff, with him as lead, were doing to help our local residents and businesses cope with the flooding problems being incurred. It was expected that he would be giving a further briefing later that day. Others were, of course, then drafted in at short notice to do that briefing. This departure was in the middle of the biggest crisis that has faced Shropshire Council since it was formed in 2009. Staff and volunteers were all being coordinated by a team of senior staff headed very ably by the Chief Executive. He was also in the process of investigating several other issues within the authority. This leadership ceased with his sudden departure. Can I and others concerned about this sudden departure please be told, and then a series of bullet points, what merited the sudden departure of the former Chief Executive of Shropshire Council?
Shall we do them one at a time?
Whichever you prefer, Chairman.
Okay. It was a mutually agreed decision between Mr. Wright and myself as leader of the council.
Thank you, Chairman. Who officially agreed and appointed the two acting Chief Executives?
Myself as leader of the council on an interim basis until a new chief executive can be formally appointed.
When effectively are their appointments from?
Tuesday the 25th of February.
If needed, were any official forms filled in, formally signed and witnessed? When was this carried out, please?
No forms are required.
Are the two persons appointed to act as joint chief executives to be given any enhancements in their pay whilst carrying out their new duties?
Discussions are ongoing and need to be finalised.
Will the departure of Mr. Wright be subject to any further action being taken by Shropshire Council, including the payment or otherwise of any monies?
It would not be appropriate to respond to this question, as to do so will involve the disclosure of confidential information.
What plans and what process will be adopted in ensuring this post is permanently filled as soon as possible?
The timeline will be agreed next week.
Will any investigation being carried out by the former Chief Executive be continued?
The former Chief Executive was involved in a number of such matters, and these will continue to be progressed appropriately on a case-by-case basis.
It is noted that no formal notice of change to council leadership was made at the council meeting. Why was this, please?
The council agenda had already been published at the time when Mr. Wright left. Any permanent appointment will be subject to council approval.
Thank you. There is a last paragraph. I'll read that out because it's part of this question. Shropshire Council are facing many unprecedented challenges. These include continuing problems caused by flooding, managing a budget which at present is only being delivered by making a number of monetary cuts, and ensuring the method of repairing our highways, including potholes, improved. I have no supplementary question.
Okay, we move on. Item 6, scrutiny items. I'm not aware of any. Item 7, local economic growth strategies. Councillor Steve Charnley.
Thank you, Leader. Happy to bring this paper forward. This sets, previously we've got the economic growth strategy for Shropshire, which runs until 2021, and the local economic growth strategies, and get the words the right way around, continue to feed into that document and will feed into the refresh, which will come along in due course. A lot of work has been done with local communities, as listed in the summary in 1.1, as we're involved in town councils, parish councils, and local business and stakeholders as well. So a lot of work has gone into bringing these documents together, and it will give us a roadmap for delivering economic growth within those market town areas. As stated at council last week, the next phase will be to go to the lower level and do a smaller strategy for the smaller communities around the county. So we're trying to encompass everybody, and this is going out to consultation. I think that's probably all I have to say. I just hope that people will get involved with it and make comment on where they think business and economic growth should grow in their areas. So I move it.
Right, I'll second that, and I'll just make a couple of comments. We've always said this as administration that economic growth is really important to us, And it's not so much about the number of jobs in Shropshire, it's about the quality of jobs. And we're hoping that this document will be used to take that idea forward. We want better quality jobs. There isn't an unemployment problem in Shropshire, but there's what I call a poor employment problem. There are too many people earning low wages, and we've got to up the skills factor so we can get wages up to a better level. And these documents all contribute to trying to do that. And we want people to get involved. We want to hear what people think about the various policies in their own towns and in Shrewsbury. And it is, how long's it take for? It can take for a while, doesn't it? Oh, sorry, I've asked the wrong question.
I think that's a quick consultation from memory.
Okay. Right, any other comments on it? Right. Okay, so all those in favour of the document, please? Okay, thank you very much. Item 8, transfer site provision in Shropshire, identification of temporary site. Councillor Steve Charnley.
Thank you, Leader. Another consultation document. The provision of transit sites for the travelling community is well identified in national legislation. It was an undertaking following the adoption of SAMDEV last time round, and obviously with the local plan review coming up, we need to make sure that provision is made within the county for the travelling community. Obviously the police do have powers under the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act that they can move travellers off privately owned ground as long as there is a transit site for them to move them onto. So it is an important part of our infrastructure. So as I say, this is going out to consultation. There have also been drop-in events to inform local residents and businesses and other interested parties being rolled out in the area, as well as a leaflet drop. So the next stage is for the consultation to start, and obviously comments will be taken on board and considered in due course once the consultation is closed and the formal paper comes forward.
Right, I'm happy to second that. Councillor Dean Carroll.
Thank you, Leader. I've got a couple of questions on this, please, Steve. I appreciate it's not entirely your portfolio, it does spread across Councillor Mace's as well, but hopefully you'll be able to answer them. I noticed that the proposed consultation period is 4 weeks. Now, as far as I'm aware, most consultations run for a period of 6 weeks. So could you tell us why it's a reduced consultation period, please? And secondly, where will the consultation be advertised and how will members of the public be able to respond to it?
All the questions. The 4-week consultation ties in with the local plan report, which Rob Macy will be bringing to Cabinet in due course. So the consultation and the consideration of that is to keep in timing with the local plan adoption process. Where you can consult, it will be in all the usual places. So the libraries, as I say, there's drop-in sessions and leaflet drops informing residents and businesses in the local area how to get hold of it. Online, of course, is another option.
Okay. Any other comments? Councillor Minery.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. Just a quick question, really. Am I correct in believing that failure to provide one of these is potentially going to invalidate the whole local plan process? That the thing may be just completely thrown out if we don't do this. Am I correct?
You are indeed. As part of the SAMDEV process, this was part of the inspector's recommendation to implement. Hence why we're coming back to it today to make sure that it's there and make sure the local plan is secure.
The local member, Councillor Owen Jones, has asked to speak, so if you want to come and
Yes, thank you, Leader. In general, I have no opposition to this property development, but that I question the location. Under the Ministry of Housing and Community Local Government, under their guide to good practice. It states, temporary stopping places should provide safe and convenient access to the road network. It also says, when considering the suitability of different sites, the potential presence of young children and the risk that may arise to adjoining use of the land. The land next to this is worked arable farmland, so there'll be tractors there. This site is situated on a fork of two busy roads. Ellesmere Road, where one hell of a lot of heavy vehicles use, and what could possibly be part of the North West Relief Road. These are two busy roads. Traffic will be moving fast. It is just totally the wrong place. You're going to have caravans, slow vehicles moving in and out of this site. There's a danger. Where it says in the document about the history of the site, he said 5 years there's been issues with travellers up in North Shrewsbury. Get your figures right. I've lived in North Shrewsbury for over 30 years, and we've had issues up there with traveller encampments for all that time. Not on council land all the time, but all the time we've had these encampments and the issues that are brought with them. The site that's proposed is very close to, well, in 150 metres of two car dealerships. One is an executive car dealership, and within close proximity there's another executive car dealership. These dealerships have been targeted in the past with antisocial behaviour. I can't say where it's come from, but there's been antisocial behaviour in that area. It seems it's the old thing, you know, nowhere else to put it, let's shove him off again. We had it with the incinerator, and this is another thing. It's not the only site. As the leader said at council last Thursday, we've got plenty of land. And he quoted land off Ellesmere Road. No, sorry, off London Road. Similar site of land, Exmoor holding, close to an industrial estate. What's the difference between that and Halsted? Perhaps an area is more fashionable. If you do go ahead with it, I'd like to request that consideration be given to screening the site off from the north. Because just across the fields, you've got the Old White Rossi Hotel, which is an important venue for weddings and other events. The last thing they want to put on is the travel site.
I would point out this is only a consultation at this stage, and I would expect you should get involved in the consultation, and if you want to be, you know, put your comments, put them forward in the consultation.
I appreciate that, but if I bring the topic immediately.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I thank you.
Right. Any other comments? Right. So the recommendation is on my page 166 to agree to consult on the location identified on land identified at Battlefield, Shrewsbury for use as temporary gypsy and traveller transit site. Can you see all those in favour? Okay, that's clearly carried. Right, moving on. Item 9, financial monitoring report. Councillor David Minery.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Members by now will be well used to receiving this report, the quarterly report on where we are in relation to the budgets that were set some 12 months ago. The report is quite long. I'm not going to attempt to pick a lot of detail out of it, but I will concentrate, Leader, on the introductory part of the report, which is on page 177 and 178 of the papers before you. And I first want to pick out the word used here of management, because in the past this has appeared to have caused certain confusion as to what exactly that word means. So I thought it would be worth detailing for colleagues and for any public who might be interested processes that actually go through on a day-by-day or a month-by-month basis where the financial situation is being reviewed. Every director gets monthly information from the finance team as to how they're performing against the budget expectations. And they are expected to account for any variations. They are expected, as they do, to discuss these with the relevant portfolio holders. And this information all feeds back into finance, and then at reporting, we get the report that you see before today. There has been suggestions in the past that only officers get things right, and all the things that go wrong involve members. And I'm sorry to disappoint anybody who holds that, but the fact is that this is very much a team effort. Portfolio holders individually are very closely aligned with the departments that they're responsible for. We do have conversations away from this particular arena. We are in a very formal setting today, so it would be strange if those conversations were being made today. But and I just wanted to make that clear at the outset. Everything that's gone on in here has been a combination of work that's been done by our officers and work that's been done by the portfolio holders. And our job, from James and myself, is to try and bring it all together and make sense of it. You'll note that the Q2 position was a lot worse. It is at the moment, Q2, we were looking at somewhere in the region of 6 million plus. That's now come overspend. That's now come down to an estimate of 1.5, which as a percentage of the overall gross budget is about 0.25, 0.27, somewhere about that's what it is. So, whilst it's an awful lot of money, nevertheless, as a percentage of what we actually spend, it's very, very small. And historically, if this authority has come out anywhere in the region of £1 to £2 million one way or the other, it hasn't been a cause for alarm. And in fact, the last 3 years, we've consistently come out ahead and underspent and been criticised for that occasion. Although the main critic, perhaps, is not here today, so I won't say any more about that. Looking at the detail, it's quite clear, and there is, where is it, 1.7, the key issues. We'll point out some of the main things that have been done, but there is a part in there that also requires a little bit of comment, I think. It's paragraphs 161, paragraphs 162, where Cabinet itself has decided, following representations made from other parties and individuals and organisations, not to implement things that were in the original strategy. And in fact, the effect of that is something like £1.3 million of potential savings have not been made, but for very good reason. I think it was important that we protected the bus transport commissioning, important that the bus subsidies, important that we protected the waste services, because all of these things matter to the people of Shropshire. So yes, I suppose in a sense we are carrying the burden of that 1.3 billion, but I think that is money well spent. We often get accused of cutting and cutting and cutting, and yes, we have to trim our cloth in accordance with what's available, but none of us do it willingly, and we do, if ever we can, try to mitigate anything that we do. I'm setting up about the background to report if there are specific questions, and I'm sure there will be. I'm sure the colleagues will take this. But I formally move the recommendations, which I've lost them now. The bottom of page 178, there's only 2 recommendations. I formally move those. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll second that. Roger, I think you indicated.
Yes, please, Chairman. Q2 monitoring report identified the red-rated savings as £5.46 million. And I assume that was what was taken forward into the budget that the Council looked at last week. The financial strategy here shows that is increased to £6.25 million. Quite a large increase. It's been offset by other savings, but it shows elsewhere that the red-rated savings are in excess of what was originally proposed. There also, as I read the report, remaining ongoing monitoring pressures of 3.29 million, and some of it has been identified as being coming back from other places. But does this 3.29 million represent pressure already on the 2020-21 budget? To sum up, Chairman, in a short sentence, is the budget the Council approved last week potentially adrift by up to £4.7 million already?
I'm going to ask James, I think, to respond to that.
So the short answer is no. When we produce the financial strategy, we take account of the monitoring position as far as we know it, and as Councillor Minery pointed out earlier, we have monthly updates that we use that information to build up the picture within the financial strategy. So we're always taking account of the long-term implications of any pressures, issues, unachieved savings within the current year, and we take the latest position on that. What I would say is, obviously, as time goes on, that position is going to continue to change, so it's not unexpected that the level of red savings have shifted between quarter 2 and quarter 3.
Okay.
One more go if I can, Chairman. I notice in the report on page 183 the overspend, and I note the children's services, which is well documented, but I see in this report place is overspent by 3.5 million. Is there any comment on that? And also, as part of the recommendations, I see in B, consider the impact of this on the Council's general fund balance. So 2 in 1 for that.
Okay. Do either of you want to respond?
Well, I guess I've already referred in part to some of the reasons why place is showing that, because the decisions that the Cabinet took not to implement the savings that had been planned have had a knock-on effect to place, and that's in 1.62, and the remainder of it is referred to in 1.61, which I did refer to 1.61 but didn't go into detail on it. And that's where it is. I think we all understand that when we start the year, the end of February, with our estimate for the following year, that things will change. Nothing stands still. It is very much a movable feast. But as we go through the year, there will be pressures from elsewhere which cause us to change direction. There will be things that we cannot control that will prevent us from moving rapidly with particular projects, and so it is proven with those two in 1.61. It's not that they won't happen, it's just that other pressures from outside have delayed.
And I think I'm right in saying, I'm sure you'll reassure me, that should we end up with the position stated with a potential overspend, that we've got more than enough in our general fund balance to ensure that that position is more than covered, and with plenty of leeway as well.
Yes, Peter, I'm sorry, Roger, I've forgotten this about the reserves. Yes, I mean the recommended level of reserves is way below the figure that we currently have. I know we as an organisation said some time ago that we would like to have more sitting in reserve, but the amount that we currently have and the amount that we will have if this comes to fruition is still above what is actually recommended as the best.
Yeah, our financial position is solid, but we will keep pressurising government as ever, and I am in Parliament on Tuesday again, chasing various MPs about money. So, you know, it's ongoing. We do. I'm talking to the MPs all the time, trying to get a better deal for Shropshire, and that's what we've got to keep pushing. So even though I think we will manage our position, we've got to keep the pressure on government, because the long term we do need more and more income and revenue support from government. Any other comments around the table? No. Right, so the recommendations are on page 178. They're quite simple, A and B at the bottom. Can I see all those in favour, please? Right, thank you very much. Item 10, Corporate Performance Report, Quarter 3. Councillor Lee Chapman.
Thank you, Leader. I'm here to present some highlights as a result of the Q3 performance report. Those of you who are familiar with the report and familiar with the performance portal will know that all of this information updated on an ongoing basis is available and front-facing via the shropshireperformance.inphase.com web link, which is published on the papers. So those of you who have an interest in these things, which I am passionate about, will no doubt be making regular reference to those performance monitoring. There are a couple of highlights. It would be remiss of me if I didn't celebrate the ongoing success of my colleague responsible for culture and leisure, with continued support for Theatre 7 on the Q3 report, with a 4.8% increase, and also an increase in visits to the Old Market Hall Cinema. For anyone who hasn't been there, it's a great place to go. A good place to do business. One of the areas that we highlight there, in addition to looking at our workforce, we highlight this quarter our performance on school standards, and it's extremely heartening and encouraging to know that 88% of the schools in Shropshire are good or outstanding. Significantly better if you look at similar neighbours and take the opportunity to celebrate the work that our schools do in respect of that. There's some interesting information in relation to workforce pay and the relationship between our economy within the workplace in Shropshire and how those wages compare to elsewhere. And I know that we've talked as a local authority about the opportunity to drive higher value jobs in Shropshire, and I think it's of interest that although we still sit below the average for weekly wages, we have significantly narrowed that gap, and therefore the direction of travel in terms of increasing the average workforce wages is continuing to improve in Shropshire, which must be good news for our economy. We are at a difficult time. Those of us with access to any type of news media will understand some of the pressures that we place on our health and social care economy, and that is no more, it's always true in winter, that we come under those additional pressures, and therefore at 11.3, it's notable that our social services, social and adult social care, and our hospital discharge team, against a backdrop of ever-increasing delays to transfer to care, particularly if you look at the performance of the colleagues in health, that the seasonal pressure is very significant at this time of year, and so in that respect it's very heartening that despite those additional pressures, the delays attributable to our adult social care teams sit very firmly below target and continue to perform amongst a handful probably of the local authorities across England. So they're certainly to be congratulated on their performance, and we hope that that continues through what I think will be some fairly difficult times for our health and social care economy. I don't have any other particular highlights, but if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them, and I will be proposing the report is adopted. Thank you.
Okay. Happy to second, Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. Taking up that last one first, I see in the report that compared with March 2019 to March 2020, the delayed transfer attributed to NHS has increased from around about 8 up to 11, which is 11.95, which is in the report, which, as is said, it is unfortunate that has worsened since September. But also, I'd like to make a comment about affordable homes. I noticed that the number of new homes has stayed stagnant, but the net number of affordable homes has gone down by over 100 in this last year, gone down from 450 or something like that, down to below 300 in the charts. Finally, Chairman, and it is useful to see the charts, and I would encourage everybody to actually look at them and look at them in depth. The claimant count for young people, if one looks at March 2018, it was around about 570. It's now over 800. Whether that's universal credit, which is there and causing that hike, I do not know, but that is a significant increase in claimant care for young people within Shropshire. Thank you.
Lee, do you want to start? And Dean is next.
Yeah, happy to respond. I think it's interesting, and I'm pleased that you highlight the delayed transfer care issue, Roger. Clearly, there are the ways that the delayed transfers work. They are either jointly attributable to health and social care, attributable to health, or attributable to adult social care. And I think that we clearly realise from our perspective that there's very significant value that comes from that joint approach working across health and social care. But you highlight very neatly the very significant pressure that exists within the health economy, as opposed to the bit of the system that we're responsible for, which is the adult social care. So yeah, absolutely there are pressures there, and we are committed as a local authority to support our health colleagues, and will continue to do that. I'd just like to comment on the affordable homes. I appreciate it's not my portfolio, but I think that you will, in the light of your comment, be significantly heartened at 9.3 that further to our development of Cornovi, wholly owned council-owned housing company, that we are working on and progressing our new housing strategy, and that in fact you will have an opportunity to see that when it's presented to Cabinet on the 25th of March. So I'm sure that that will provide you with significant confidence in the approach that we're taking to address the needs across Shropshire for individuals, both in terms of social, affordable and open market rent housing. Thank you, Roger.
Lee.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Lee, for bringing the report. There's a couple of points that I'd like to make questions asked or answer, and I'll start actually with delayed transfers of care. I don't think that the report entirely does justice to the phenomenal efforts that our teams, our integrated care teams have done. We are now the 4th best performing local authority in England for delayed transfers of care. We recognise and understand the pressures that our colleagues in the health system are under, and we regularly make efforts to support them through the Health and Wellbeing Board, for example, and health scrutiny, and by bilateral meetings and the NCP. So entirely recognise the pressure they're under, but I don't think that should be allowed to take away from the outstanding achievements of our own teams. Secondly, I'd like to go back a few pages, if I may, to 6.2 and the renewable energy generation. And I think it's a little unfair comparing Q2, which is the autumn, with Q3, which is the winter. Obviously, we're going to be generating far less energy from solar PV installations during the winter than we are able to during any other quarter. I think perhaps if I can request that in future a fairer comparison would be Q3 this year to Q3 last year, because I don't think it gives a fair reflection of our ever increasing capacity and our intentions to continue increasing capacity in renewable energy generation.
Considering the weather, does mean we need to really give more thought to hydroelectric all the time, and that is something we will be revisiting, because I think there are huge opportunities in that. If it's going to continue raining, we've got to make the use of the water. Any other comments, Roger? Just quickly, you've had a good run.
Yeah, quickly. This is against council and anything like this, but I wanted to add to it some information I found yesterday about looked after children looking into accommodation. Would you permit me to give just a couple of facts there, which I think need to be broadcast? Any councillor who has any input into it could actually affect one housing association has informed this council that they will no longer offer accommodation to any under 25 who is just purely on benefit, i.e. has no other income. The reason being that they get £58 per week on universal credit. They're saying that the government says that you need £73.10 to live on. So this housing association is saying that £58 is not sufficient.
Right.
But
I'm even trying to comment because we...
Yeah. No, but I'm saying that any other councillor wants any details, can they come back to me or talk to the housing team, because it does give concern for the future.
Right. Okay.
Well, I was going to say I'll put that up because I had a meeting with Anne, the Town Housing Officer, last week. So if you've got any additional information, please pass to me.
Yeah, it would be far more useful if you forward information in advance so that we can have a proper look at it. I think I think you're trying to win political points, and I think it's a bit naughty of you.
It's nothing like that. And I will be bringing it up at the focus committee tomorrow morning for it to be followed through there.
Right, so we've got the report. It's been moved and seconded. The recommendations, we've lost them over here somewhere. On page 222, there's an A and a B. Can I see all those in favour, please? Right, thank you very much. And then the last report is rural youth facilities. Ed Potter is the portfolio holder.
Thank you very much. This is just a very, very short paper following on to the work that has already happened around the new youth strategy, and also following on requests and inquiries more than anything from smaller villages and parishes who would like to do things to benefit young people in their localities. This is a paper that Cabinet requests officers to explore the viability of a range of options for the provision of mobile youth facilities in rural areas, and looking at this in more detail about best practice nationally, to see what other local authorities are doing, what other sort of voluntary sector organisations are doing, and then to bring a paper back to Cabinet for us to consider. So it is purely just to go out and do some work. We have obviously, as our staggered approach to the new youth model takes over the next 12 months. And again, as we have more inquiries coming in from smaller parishes, smaller communities, individual villages who want to do things for young people in their communities, I think it would be well worthwhile looking at what other local authorities do to see what we can do in this area.
I'll ask Pauline in a minute. I just want to make sure I've got the right picture in my mind, and I know I have because of the discussion we've had. Years ago, there used to be a converted bus that went round and would provide sort of youth club type facilities. And I think it's thinking about whether we could do something. It might not be a bus, it might be a wagon or a van or whatever. But
I think we need to do the work to understand what would best meet the needs of young people today. Yes, something mobile, something that's flexible. We know, for example, that not all young people in rural communities can get to or want to attend traditional youth club sessions, but whether it's looking at sports, other activities and things like that in localities, but being a bit more flexible in the way in which youth provision is delivered, I think that's something to really consider and just get a grip of.
Right, Pauline.
Right, thank you very much, Leader. And can I first of all thank you that we have got our grant for Wen Youth Club. I'm being very parochial. When Town Council already had been putting in £2,000 a year to support it, so they always step up to the plate. But I mean, with ratepayers, they already support the town hall, the swimming, the sports facilities, etc. This year is the 50th anniversary of the building of Wen Youth Club, and we've got a small committee are now trying to raise funds to do up the building because we are responsible for it. I'm the co-chair of Wen Youth Club. Unfortunately, I've got a very, very good, the co-chair, Michael, is fantastic, and we are constantly looking at ways to try and raise money. But I have a letter here, or a statement from a mum who would like you to know that it's not just rurality, it's not the sparsity, but it's what Youth Club does for young people with that have got problems. So, with your permission, if I could read, I should be taking this and reading this at another I'm collecting some grant funding from another large organisation, and I shall also be reading this out for them. My child has hidden disabilities which involve quite specific special needs. He has high-functioning autism, Asperger's, ADHD, anxiety and sensory issues. As a result, he struggles to understand the world and the people around him. He has a social, emotional and communication delay of approximately 3 years. When Youth Club is an amazing project charity. It means I can let him gain independence in a safe environment. It is somewhere he is not labelled by his peers as he is in school. School politics does not apply at Youth Club, and children that he struggles to get on with at school interact with him differently at Youth Club. Also, the pressures and struggles of home do not apply either. He can go to Youth Club and get the unbiased adult support he needs to be just, and it's his name, I wish I would say. Youth Club is not just important to his confidence and independence now, but it is setting him up with social skills for the future. Skills that I don't think anyone, anywhere else, could teach him. He interacts with older children and has to be mindful of the younger ones. It means he will know people other than his peers when he moves up to secondary school, which is incredibly reassuring at such an uncertain time. He also learns how to relax and play pool, or just generally chat and make friends in an unstructured environment, which will come in useful in the common room at sixth form when he goes away to university or gets a job. Just hanging out is not one of those things that comes naturally to John, as he lacks understanding of people. When Youth Club teaches him how to accept and interact with other children, even though things or the conversation does not go the way he wants or expects. When Youth Club is not just important to us because it helps him to improve his social and communication skills, his independence and his confidence. It also teaches the other children to be tolerant of him. Just because you cannot see a disability or difference does not mean it is not there. There is a reason he acts the way he does, and at When Youth Club, the children learn someone is not just that person from school, and it's okay to accept it. I don't know where we would be without When Youth Club's support of him. As a parent, it is a huge weight lifted off my shoulders that he is learning skills I cannot teach him, and supported by good people with his best interests at heart in a safe, unbiased environment. When Youth Club is somewhere that accommodates my special needs child, and he feels the same as everyone else. I dread to think what would happen to him, or how we would cope without the support he receives at Youth Club, if the youth funding were withdrawn and the Youth Club had to close. And I think that says what happens all over the county. You know, these children, they are just so special. It obviously will save a fortune for your child social services, because he's been looked after in this environment.
Okay,
All right,
thank you. Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. I echo much of what Councillor G said, but to start this report, I criticise quite often. I say thank you, it is needed. We do need an approach for the rural areas so that we can talk to youth and maybe stop this county lines. We need to get into there and go where the young people are, and this may do it. So, yeah, support this and want to take it forward.
I think it is just a different approach to deal with things. Any further comment, Councillor Minery?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'm going to be a little bit naughty if you don't mind. Because...
You're not going to talk about market trade,
yes.
How
did you
Go
guess?
for it, go for it.
Obviously, I couldn't say anything on the question was asked. But I just wanted to reassure anybody who might be concerned about the support that the Town Council is prepared to give to this. That in fact, they're considering putting more money in than was spent by Shropshire Council. And the undertaking was initially given back in 2016 when we first started this process of reductions, in the days when we still had local joint committees. However, the Town Council have for some time been of the view that what was being provided was not meeting the actual need, which is why they embarked upon the application to the lottery for the funding for the area that's referred to as the zone, and why that is being used as the focus point for the delivery of the youth service that the Town Council are funding. And I just wanted to set the record straight. So that's that. And the other point is relevant to this directly. Although it wasn't in a rural area, it was actually in Liverpool. A couple of weeks ago I was visiting my daughter. I heard this noise, went outside to have a look, and there was a vehicle which I think had probably been a horse transport or a cattle transport would have been converted. Ramp was dropped down, the side doors were open, loud music was playing, there was various activities going on in it, and this was being operated by a local charity. I think it's something to do with the churches. And I went up quickly, had a word with them, and yes, I mean, they were doing what we're trying to do in the rural areas, because in certain parts of cities it's just as much of a problem finding things to occupy young people as it is in the rural areas. And so this was a voluntary organisation funded by a charity that had converted this, and it was going around some of the more needy areas in the city. So I very much welcome this. Very happy to support it. It hasn't been seconded yet, so I'll be delighted to do so.
Okay, right. I'll just throw in a couple of sentences. I'm on Shrewsbury Town Council, and it does seem to be working very well there, that the Town Council tend to be running a lot of youth services within Shrewsbury. Yes, there was a bit of initial surprise when things changed. Actually, they've settled down really well. And it does seem to me, as time goes on, that some of these services are better at being delivered more locally than by the Shire Hall trying to impose things, across. And I actually think the town and parishes are the place for the delivery of some of these youth services, and it appears to be working very well in various parts of the county. I do accept that some of the smaller parishes, it creates challenges, and that's what we're hoping to achieve by doing something like this, have a different sort of way of dealing with things in the smaller parishes. So, that's the way we're trying to look at it. Roger, I'm being very kind today.
I admit it's the smaller parishes where there is great difficulty. I have one, and it was the youth club that I was, and when I made that comment was that parish council is unable to increase its funding, and that parish and that youth club will be closed down to other reasons. It might be great, I congratulate them for what they're doing. I'm not criticising them, but it's the affordability that is being put onto parish councils, town councils, whatever their size, and it just needs time to see it through.
Yeah. Right, so the report's been moved and seconded. I think everybody sounds enthusiastic, so I'm hoping that everyone will vote for it. So all those in favour, please show. Right, thank you all very much. That's it.